I give the best advice I never take. And that's the most honest thing I can say. There's something almost absurd about being the person people come to when things feel messy, and then going home to your own mess and having no idea what to do with it. Not because you lack the tools, not because you don't understand the problem, but because somehow the clarity that flows so naturally when you're sitting with someone else just completely disappears the moment you turn it on yourself. That's my reality anyway, about 90% of the time. And I think it's time that I say that out loud. I help people find structure in chaos. I love doing it. Whether I'm where I need to be personally or not, well, that's part of me that never turns off. Uh, but I've made it a habit of being upfront about something whenever I'm helping someone. Always. I'm going to say things like, trust me, I need to be taking my own advice as well. I'm speaking it to myself first. And I don't do that to seem humble or relatable. I say it because it's true and it keeps me honest. The reality is that it is almost always easier for me to help someone else hear something than it is for me to hear it myself. It's a kind of a distance that you get when you're looking at someone else's situation. The emotion isn't in the way. You can see the shape of the problem clearly, but when it's your own life, your own patterns, your own pain, that distance disappears entirely, and you're just standing in the middle of it trying to find your footing. What trips me up the most is not self doubt. I want to be clear about that. I know what I'm capable of. I know I'm smart. I know I'm strong. Uh, I know I show up. The thing that gets in the way for me is burnout. Heavy burnout. Okay. It's that quiet accumulation of trying hard and still being disappointed again and again until some part of you starts to brace for the letdown before it even arrives. So I started lowering my expectations, unfortunately. Not for myself, but for what I let myself need from others. If I expect things to go sideways, then when they do, I'm not so caught off guard. It's kind of a self protection that makes total sense on the surface, but it also means I'm not fully open to my own needs. I'm guarding myself from the very things that I help other people pursue all the time. And then there's the other thing, the part that's even harder to talk about. Even when I'm doing everything right, I'm communicating clearly, I'm being intentional, showing up fully for other people, I still end up feeling misread. It's exhausting in a way that's really hard to explain because it's not about ego. It's not about needing to be praised. It's about being genuinely seen for what you're actually doing, which for me is almost always about other people, not about me. I don't think of myself as self centered. That matters a lot for me to say. So much of what I do for others. And when that still gets lost in translation, I shut down, I pull back. Not out of anger, but out of a kind of quiet defeat that I've gotten very, very good at hiding. There was a moment not too long ago that stopped me completely. A friend of mine, someone I hadn't spent a lot of time with but have known for a while, she came to me and she told me she had taken something from me the last time she came over, and that it was more than she initially admitted. She didn't have to say anything. Matter of fact, she should have just kept quiet. She could have just kept quiet and let it go. I wouldn't have thought twice. But she didn't. She called. She said that even in the short time that she'd been hanging around me a little bit more, that I'd been so welcoming to her and her family, she didn't want to lose that. She said, now, I might lose it because I'm going to be very honest. But she wanted to be honest because the connection meant too much to her. She brought back what she had taken and then some. She showered me with all sorts of gifts. And since then, she has shown up for me in ways that genuinely have moved me and came at the right time. When she told me this, I'm not going to lie, I cried. I told her I have never felt more seen in my life. She was thrown off by that completely, which tells you something about how rare that kind of honesty is. What made me feel seen wasn't a compliment. It wasn't someone telling me I'm doing a great job or that they admire what I've built. It was someone choosing truth over comfort because the relationship was worth protecting. That kind of honesty, the kind that costs something, is the most powerful form of being known that I have ever personally experienced. I think in that moment, it I think that moment clarified something for me that I have been trying to articulate for a really long time. The thing that people need most in order to heal isn't advice. It's not structure or strategy. It's a space where they don't have to perform, where they can be honest without losing something they can't afford to lose. That's the root of what I'm building with MK-ALTRA. And I mean the root in the most literal sense. People who need real support often can't access it because it doesn't not because it doesn't exist, but because getting honest about your struggles most of the time feels dangerous. You might lose credibility, you might lose your job, you could even lose your kids. So you put on a mask and you say what's safe, and you get surface level help or a surface level version of your problem, and nothing actually changes. We're all going to hide if that's the only option available to us. And if we're hiding, we're not healing. We're just managing. I know that fear personally. I understand what it feels like to carefully calibrate what you say and how you say it so that you're heard correctly and still come away feeling completely misunderstood. So I understand what it costs people to be vulnerable in spaces that weren't designed to hold them. MK-Ultra is meant to be the space that was designed for, not a place where you have to prove your worth helping, not a place where your worst moments become the thing that defines how people treat you, a place where you can be exactly where you are without performing something you're not, and actually get to the root of what's keeping you stuck. I built it because I needed it to exist. Because I know what it is to be the person holding things together for everyone else while quietly wondering if anyone is really paying attention to you, the real you, not the version you've carefully made acceptable. Here's what I've come to understand about all of this. Being the one who helps and being the one who needs help are not opposite things. They live in the same person all the time. I I give the best advice I never take. And I say that not as a confession of failure, but as proof that this work is real. I'm not standing outside of it looking in. I'm inside it, living it, and building something in the middle of it. The friend who was honest with me taught me that what makes a space feel safe is not the absence of mistakes, it's the presence of truth. And truth, real truth, is only possible when the cost of honesty isn't so high that it becomes impossible to speak. That's the kind of community I'm committed to. One where being real doesn't cost you everything. Where you can take off the mask long enough to actually breathe. Long enough to figure out what you actually need. Not the cleaned up version that you've been told is acceptable. The actual thing. I'm still learning how to do that for myself. But I show up anyway. Really, that's always been the point. Thanks for tuning in today with MK Ultra. We'll see you next week.